On this episode of Texas Whiskey, we are talking TahWahKaro Whiskey. Stay tuned. The quality is.
It's not the length of the intro. It's the
quality.
In the ocean?
I don't know. Hey, welcome to Texas Whiskey. My name is Jimmy Hayes Nelson. Most people just call me Coach Jimmy. Way over to my right, it's the mafia of the mash, the boss of the booze, the doctor, Dr. Nico Martini. Nicely done with the hat.
Thank you. Thank you. Have you been writing things down? Do you have a list of nicknames for me now?
Maybe.
I like it.
Did you like those? The mafia of the mash.
Let me tell you
the
what.
boss of the booze, and then go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I've been handed. Just speaking of the hat.
Yep.
I've been handed a bit of swag in general.
Over the life of things.
This is the only hat that I wear. This is the only whiskey hat that I wear.
It's a good looking hat.
TahWahKaro officially has the best hats.
So before we talk about their whiskey, we're just talking that they have the best hat.
Dude, it's the best hat. This hat is amazing.
I may be in a suit, but I do feel a little left out now. So we'll have to snag me a hat at some point.
Forgive me. I should have brought
It would have actually. I wore the brown suit today too. It would have.
It
gone
totally
with
would have matched.
So we want to welcome our special guest today, who brought special whiskey, Mr. Justin Jackson. How are you, man?
Good. How are y'all?
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Well, we
This is
usually
fun.
start the show by pouring something to sip on while we learn all about you and your whiskey. And so, Nico, what do you have over there in that magic bottle?
Well, this is a TahWahKaro barrel strength, and as soon as I pulled this out of the bag, I'll bring the whiskey that I have just in case somebody's like, "Oh my God, I was coming from a meeting, I totally forgot the whiskey. I don't have anything." Well, at least I've got a few, a little bit. But as soon as I pull this out, Justin goes, "Where? What batch is that? How old?" That's like. This is maybe the 35th, 36th barrel that y'all ever.
Yeah, it's 2018.
When you impress the founder, that's pretty good, man.
Yeah. So we're drinking some. I
want you to try the. Well, anyway.
No.
We'll get to all of it. Don't worry.
No, trust me. I have a whole rant on if you've tried whiskey. If you've
pour.
tried Texas whiskey a long time ago, you should try it now because everybody's gotten a lot better at making
Right.
whiskey and all of our stuff's older.
Yes.
So but this is
perfect. This was a special barrel.
Yeah.
I remember the 2018 barrel 10. That was made the second week of 2018.
Right on.
And I'm guessing the age is probably January 14th. But anyway, the point is we really started to fire in all cylinders.
Nice.
Right about that time.
Nice.
And,
so we'll get to
cheers.
directly compare.
Yes.
The firing
Cheers.
of all
Yeah.
cylinders, and then all of the cylinders going.
Well,
I love this stuff.
I love how distillers talk about barrel like they talk about their children. It's like, oh, I remember number 10. And then it's like, he was a rambunctious one, but we finally got him to calm down.
Real pain in the ass, but we tamed him.
Hey, we know every barrel, that's for sure.
That's awesome.
That's lovely.
It's delightful.
That's delightful.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is where I usually talk about it, but I'm not. But I've started saying I don't want to talk about it anymore. Justin, what are we drinking? Tell us a little bit about this.
Yeah, we are drinking TahWahKaro 4-grain bourbon.
4-grain bourbon.
Yeah, it's 4-grain bourbon. Yep. We wanted to create a pretty circular profile of flavor, and early on, late 2017, when we actually started distilling. We wanted to marry the people that prefer a smooth whiskey with the people that prefer more of a rye whiskey,
right,
or bourbon, and that's what was that's how we bore 4-grain bourbon. So we're like, hey, why don't we just split the rye poundage with wheat as well on 50-50? So it's 11% wheat, 11% rye, and 65 corn, and yeah, that's TahWahKaro 4-grain. One other key thing too, sorry I didn't say it in the mash bill, but we use 13% malt.
Okay.
We use 3 different malts.
Oh, nice.
A 6-row, just almost like a distiller's 6-row, an extra toast, 2-row, and then a rye malt.
Yes.
It's part of our rye malt whiskey as well. So we use the same rye malt in our bourbon that we do in our rye malt whiskey.
It was so funny when I was doing my research on the site, and I thought of you, Nico. So I found out early on that actually one of that same trip when we went down to the the Texas Whiskey Festival, or maybe it was the trip before that, I realized that Nico likes to compare whiskeys to dessert.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have something when we ask, like, so what do you taste? And somewhere
I'm very familiar with whiskey and dessert. Okay.
Okay, so if you go to the fact that, so maybe not, well, yeah, I guess it's a dessert, but you look at the flavor profile of the bourbon on the website, it has caramel and buttered toast. And I was like, this is right up Nico's alley.
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely.
big time.
Absolutely. No, there's definitely like a
Yeah.
Like there's almost like a I get a little bit of a baguette.
Of course you do.
No, sorry. I meant beignet. Beignet.
See, when I heard caramel and buttered toast, I was like, well, that's almost French toast. I was like, you know,
there's creme brulee in here.
Oh, it's lovely.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Butter toast is a common, it's a common flavor we get in all of our spirit, really.
That's so great.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit of the history. Like, when did you guys get started?
Yeah, we started January 2016 in Grapevine, Texas.
In Grapevine, Texas, not far from here at all.
Yep. And we filed for application January, and then didn't get equipment for about a year and 3 months. But that was March, April, or 2017, and by the time we got everything set up and running, it was about July, and we started running trash runs in July, or throwaway runs. Mm-hmm. We want to season the still, just like a frying pan. So August of 2017, we started filling our first barrel.
That's cool.
It took me 5 runs to fill the first barrel.
Wow.
I have it in our new shop.
Yeah.
It's about to turn 4.
Yeah.
And it's cool. It's such a different whiskey compared to what we really fell into, started making.
Sure.
And plus it took 5 runs to fill 30 gallons.
Right.
Which is it's insane.
Was there any challenges? I saw on there that this was like the first distillery ever in Grapevine or anything. Were you already there? Is that why you chose there? Because that was kind of home or whatever? And then was there any challenges in being the first in an area trying to establish that?
No challenges being the first in the area. Grapevine was dry. It still is dry.
Ironic.
And one of the reasons we moved, that was one of the challenges.
Yeah.
But it, back then being grain to glass, we talked to them and they were hoping that it would change over the next 2 or 3 years.
Right.
So I knew we had a while to wait for our bourbon to age, but
it's always funny because when I think of Grapevine, I feel like it's like wine tastings and like that down to that Main Street area or whatever. I think of alcohol in some way, shape, or form when I think of Grapevine. So that's ironic that it's
and they have a great brewery, Hoppenstein Brewery as well.
Wow.
Really great brewery.
It's a good drinking town.
So they're trying to make it a drinking town, right? Obviously,
they're trying to get it, but those darn distilled spirits laws that everybody seems to have issues with. But whatever.
We basically
a different rant entirely.
Right, that's a different show. We'll put that one down for laws.
Yeah.
But
that's a very dry show. Hey. Sorry.
Here's everything Nico hates about the TABC.
That'll be the heavy drinking show.
It's just me yelling at the microphone for half an hour.
And so you talked about that. So you are in the process or have since moved, right?
Yes. Yeah. So we actually lived in, my wife and I lived in Dallas at the time, and her mom lived in Grapevine. And so it was just it was kind of a seamless move to get out of the heart of the big city.
Yeah.
Which is a great big city, but, and go out to the suburbs a little bit and start the distillery. And so we started producing, and very long story short, started outgrowing the space. We got the next door space to us, outgrew that. Then we put a container outside, outgrew that. And we had, I can't remember how many. 50,
and this was in the Grapevine location?
This is in Grapevine,
right,
50-something barrels in a container that hits 135 degrees regularly.
Wow.
Texas Rickhouse, baby.
Yep.
Yeah,
Texas
exactly.
Rickhouse. It's the container out back.
Yeah.
You literally open the
it's
doors,
a
you can't go in.
sauna / Rickhouse, yes.
It'll burn your eyes.
Yeah, totally. No, I remember being out there, and you were like, there's the container. I can open the door, but you can't go in. I'm like, why? Because you'll pass out.
Yeah.
It's the scene. It's the scene from Indiana Jones where everybody's faces are melting, and
Oh, it is rough. So we just started looking around. We kind of took an hour and a half radius around the DFW, and said what would be a interesting, cool city, and taking price, location, making sure that it can be a day trip kind of thing. But we had to go further out just because of property around here is expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, not just if you lease it, to own it is expensive.
Well, and do you feel like in the move, we talk a lot here about regions and temperature and everything, something that was close enough that it wasn't going to impact what you guys had already been doing in Great? Like, was that a consideration? You mentioned a radius, so I was curious if that was part of it. Is we don't want to go too far when we're in a completely different climate in another part of the state?
Somewhat. I mean, I would say I didn't really consider going too far south.
Yeah.
To get drier and drier climates. East Texas is actually, in my view, pretty good for angel share and for what you lose. But
sure.
What I've lost in my barrels is, that was grapevine loss. That wasn't what East Texas is going to bring to the table. I haven't filled a barrel yet, but we're excited about that. The key is it's a 9-acre parcel in the heart of Palestine. It has 37,000 square feet, so I have plenty of rick house. It's awesome. It's huge.
That's awesome.
And we have an open 2.5 acres to be able to build another rick house if we need to. It's got a huge. It's going to be a really cool spot.
So where are you? Where are you on it? Like how much longer do you have?
That's like the crazy.
We
worst
are recording
question.
this on August 18th.
18th, right? It'll go. Yeah.
I told the Palestinian we'd have the project done June 20 or June 1st.
Well,
but it's just construction delays and et cetera. We don't need to get into that, but we've got the tasting room probably about 60-70% done.
Nice.
The walls are done. Hey,
awesome.
They're clean walls. The floor's almost done. And then production, I'm about 90% done on the production infrastructure implementation of it. So I still have probably about a day and a half more on my boiler install and about 2 days on the chiller install, but it's all there. That's a good thing. And the kettles are up. If you go to my socials or our socials, you can see the big twin Arthur Harris kettles that we have, which are unique. Nobody has them.
That is literally what I'm looking for right now.
Really in the world.
Okay, so I always feel like I'm the guy that has to ask the I don't know what that is questions on the show. Okay. So tell me a little bit more about that and what makes them unique.
So this is we should be a little bit better about this, but these.
It's a kettle.
Yeah.
It's not
okay.
ours,
So these are this is what we're talking about. The tell us the story of the kettles because I love this story.
Yeah. In 2018, as a grain glass distiller, you've got to you have to be ahead of your sales continually. Mm-hmm. So you're trying to predict what your sales are going to be 2 or 3 years, from right now.
Wow.
But it was a used equipment site, bidonequipment.com, BOE, and they had these copper kettles, and then I contacted Vendome and got some quotes going for that, and I was like, well, we can't really afford that, even though they're the best kettles in the world. So I started to look at these copper kettles that were on this Bid on Equipment site, and I was like, how do I do this? How I can't weld copper. I probably can find people,
right?
But literally taking them from a copper kettle to a whiskey production kettle is just extremely difficult. So I called Vendome Copper and Brass, said, do you guys ever refurbish and inspect? And they said, absolutely. Mm-hmm. So we basically contacted the chocolate manufacturer called Sconza Candy, who bought and took over the decommissioned Hershey's chocolate factory in Oakdale, California.
Okay.
So when Hershey's decommissioned and moved to Monterey, they left all of the equipment, and that's what I was looking at. There were 8 of them left. We bought 7 of them. We had Vendome come out and sonically test how thick the copper was. Yeah. It was a 1/4 inch thick, which they don't make kettles that thick now.
Oh, wow.
And so they're going to last a really long time. But they were made in one of the kettles we have standing right now is made in 1961. One was made in 1964.
That's awesome.
By a company called Arthur Harris, Copper and Brass Works. And they're the oldest coppersmith and brassworks company that I've researched in our country. 1883, I believe, is when they actually got started.
Wow.
And they made the milk condensers. These are called vacuum pans for the Hershey's chocolate factory, 12 of them originally. And so previous to 2008, when the factory was decommissioned, if you had Hershey's chocolate, there's a 50-50 chance, whether it's Pennsylvania or Oakdale, that you had chocolate out of our kettle.
That's cool.
And basically they condensed milk and then went to crumb and kind of kept going down the process. But we had Vendome refurbish them, add a big flue or add the right size flue. I helped, with Vendome's obviously super great advice. Basically chose a 6-plate tower is what I like to operate on. And the condensers are all new, but we put them where they face each other. So my hydrometer station is literally 4 inches apart for both kettles, and they're historic. Nobody has them. I've actually sold 3 total to 2 different distilleries because we bought 7, and we still have 2 to further production again.
Right on.
To double again. But the other 2 guys are great guys. One's in New York and one's in Ohio. One's a single malt producer, and another is a little more of a rum and whiskey producer. But they're I don't know when they're going to be implemented, but a couple of years probably down the road. But again, nobody's got them in the world.
I love that. Is a great story. You're
so
right.
cool.
That's very cool.
If you look on our socials, you can see the actual tag too. There's a tag on there, and then the other 2 kettles we have actually has the Hershey's tag on it too.
That's cool.
So it's pretty neat. Yeah, we're excited about it. And then my wife got me a catalog. I think you probably saw it, but it's an actual 2 months before Prohibition catalog of Arthur Harris.
Okay.
Before Prohibition ended, and Arthur Harris wrote Hiram Walker. If y'all know who Hiram Walker is up in Canada, one of the largest spirits producers in the country or in North America, still. But they moved their Chicago plant out when Prohibition hit, and Arthur Harris wrote a letter and said, "Hey, we want to, now that Prohibition's ended, can we make the equipment for your new your refurbished or your redo on your Chicago plant?" And they got it. So, but there's a personal letter from Arthur Harris himself, signed, that my wife found. This is from my Father's Day after.
That's awesome.
After I bought the kettles, it was like she found it on eBay. Crazy,
right?
It's an
where you
actual
find
letter.
everything, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
exactly.
Well,
but yeah, so they're going to be cool. They're 400 gallons each, and we're doubling production, and they're just unique. Very
That's
different.
exciting.
They're gorgeous. They're so cool.
I love the fact that you mentioned grain to glass beforehand, and I was it's obviously very predominant on your website and stuff, and something we've talked about quite a bit on this show, and things that I've learned as we started the show, and I was always kind of looking to Nico to find out more and more about what people consider Texas whiskey and different things. And so was that something that was like a non-negotiable for you from the very beginning of this thing? Was that something that was important to you to establish from the start?
Yes.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's awesome.
I was very adamant about it at first, and I've since changed quite a bit. Part of it was 2020 and the lockdown, COVID, and lack of production, really. And then once we moved, delays in production, we're probably going to release a source whiskey or a blend of our whiskey with a source whiskey, but keep our premier products as well. But yeah, early on, I never wanted to. I like to make things with my hands. It's like I was doing woodworking and some other things, before, and I always enjoyed just going, working. I can't. It's hard for me on a Saturday morning to sleep in.
I get that.
So I wanted to produce what I make. Yeah. And but again, I'm very open to the better business model of sourcing. But I really respect. Not that it's like the best way to do it, the only way to do it or whatever, but just, Nico and I've talked this before, a sense of state pride a bit of like, hey, this is ours. Like this is all ours, And so specifically with Texas whiskey being, a newer kid on the block or something, it's really cool to be like, all right, cool. This is what we do. And this is all our parts, to create something quality. I agree with you. That's one of the reasons we just like, starting a distillery in Texas early on in 2015 when we were kind of going over it in our heads and figuring out we just have a great amount of support for Texas product. Yeah. So even the distillers, we're a team. We're a family. Yeah. And we all have each other's back, or we should. And it's a great state for that. I think a lot of pride in who we are as Texans.
That's cool. Do you want to talk more about what else we have here in front of us as far as what you guys have in the lineup? Obviously, this was a little older bottle that isn't around anymore. That's great that Nico has this, like, in his extensive shelf at home.
You don't even know what you got.
You don't know what magic you have in the back.
Yeah, definitely. I'm guessing this is probably 2.5 years old in bottle.
Right on. Yeah.
But
that's awesome.
Yeah, I've got some stuff we'll probably be releasing, out of the distillery. Probably for trail members, but have special releases out of our distillery. But I have a bottle of.
You always go for the small unlabeled bottle.
Yeah,
That's right. Nico gets excited about Magic Secret whiskey.
I want the secret whiskey.
That one's going to be probably one of the hallmarks of our company. I think maybe one of the hallmarks of the company. But basically, I've got a 3-year, 2-month-old bourbon that. A year and 8 months ago, I Solerated. I removed it from the bourbon barrel because I just emptied a 30-gallon rye malt barrel.
Okay.
So it's been aging in a rye malt barrel for a year and 8 months.
Oh, how cool!
And it's amazing. It's my favorite barrel right now, personally.
Nice.
Just my personal, palate.
And that's this one?
No, it's one of the big ones.
Okay.
One of the white ones. And then the other big cast strength, the off-white label, is our. It's our bourbon. It's a 4-grain bourbon.
And that's what this one is, correct?
It's actually the off-white label,
this one here?
And it's our bourbon. Everything's the same, but it's red and blue corn. So it's Purple Haze, that one.
Purple Haze. Yeah, right here. Purple Haze.
So the red and blue corn isn't as old, but it's phenomenal. And I just had actually, I always forget Wade's last name. Wade with MBS Seed. At the distillery, distillery yesterday, and I tasted him on that, and he's like, "Oh man, that's where it's at right there."
Can I open those?
Yeah, please, And then no, these are both all the open.
Oh, it's nice. And so, is this and that? Are these the exact same thing?
No, they're not.
This is something is that rum barrel? That's
a rye malt.
Rye. I was like,
we make a rye malt whiskey.
Gotcha.
And we emptied when I sold the first 3 barrels of rye malt. We emptied those barrels. I took bourbon in those first 3 barrels and I transferred it. So I removed it from a bourbon barrel and put it in the ex rye malt barrel.
That's cool.
But we finished for a long period of time.
Just from here, what a fantastic color on that as well.
Gorgeous. It's absolutely beautiful.
But the Purple Haze it's just unique. We call it Purple Haze because we were listening to Stevie Ray Vaughan, on Spotify, and Jimi Hendrix had played that day, and we just remember it because our mash was absolutely purple.
Man, that is so completely different than what we just had, what we started off with.
It's sweet, yeah. Oh, wow. That's lovely.
Yeah,
it's sweet, but it's earthy, but it's not overly earthy. It's very like.
And what's the proof on this? 128.
Yeah, 128.
That does not drink like because it's so funny. You think like 128. This is about to punch me in the face, and it doesn't at all. Well, it's lovely.
Which
I think makes it more dangerous. Sometimes you're like, this doesn't taste like 128 proof. Why am I on the floor?
Oh, this is fantastic.
I've talked to Nico about that a little bit. We do a couple things differently. We sweet mash first of all, which is that is a different thing in the whiskey world. So we don't use any backset. We don't do any sour mashing, and I don't use any tails. I always get rid of tails. I don't keep them.
Yeah.
So below 130 proof on my cuts, I don't take. I'm done at 130. I cut the still off, and we're done. So our cuts are really small, but we single distill. We do not double distill or triple distill. So we run one time with our with our bourbon, and mainly because, there are a few different reasons, but we like to be grain forward. We like to promote the mash, promote the fermenter.
Which that's obvious. Yeah, absolutely.
The flavors are just great and they're beautiful. As long as you keep away, which we feel like we have with our yeast profile, that bitter back finish. Single distillation, to us, we'd like to promote those flavors that are made in the fermenter, excuse me. And instead of taking them away, the more time your vapors hit copper, the more flavor you take away.
Yep.
Until obviously you get to 190 proof and get into the vodka and on the pure. But we like to promote those the flavors. So grain forward distilling, single distillation run, what that does is it retains a little more of those fusel oils.
Yeah.
And those oils will coat your tongue. We call it chewy bourbon. And so it kind of stays around.
It does.
And as long as it's not bitter,
yeah.
that's a good thing. That's a
good
good
feeling.
thing.
It's
Yeah,
awesome.
But it makes it smoother and not as alcohol-y, like hitting you in the nasal passages and burning your throat.
Not at all. None.
So
of
yeah,
that.
that's
Yeah.
what, it'll be we've had 132 proof come out of a barrel before.
Wow.
And it just drinks beautifully smooth.
Is all your grain coming from Texas?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Yeah, for the most part now,
Yeah.
When we start distilling again. But
You
yeah,
have to adjust on the fly.
yeah. These barrels were all Texas.
Cool.
We ran into a lot of weevils early on, 2017,
Oh, really?
and we couldn't find the right supplier. So we actually switched up to North Dakota corn. Some of the earliest barrels, probably
So good.
this one was North Dakota corn. And,
Oh, right on.
and then we worked our way down to Kansas and Oklahoma and then back into Texas.
Sure.
Over the next 9 to 10 months.
Now, is it usually from the same areas in Texas, or does that vary as well?
Yes, yeah. NBS Seed is our corn supplier, wheat and rice supplier.
Very cool.
So yeah, North Texas, near Denison.
Oh, nice. So it really is all in the, and not only
Yeah.
grain to glass, it's damn near just all in the area. That's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yes, and a lot of our or most of our malts, right before we stopped producing and started to move, they were all Texas as well.
Cool.
Have you ever messed around with chocolate malt?
I haven't.
Okay.
No.
Just because of the Hershey
because
tie?
of the Hershey thing. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a great
I'm like-
question.
I'm like, yeah, no. At some point, I see this totally.
Yeah.
Like,
Just
what
to
an
end the
awesome little
story,
special
right.
release. Yeah.
Don't worry, it's in my head.
It's in the head.
Call that the Willy Wonka whiskey or something.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it's the
Well,
chocolate something.
You know what's crazy is the day they transported the 7 stills to us, they had them all on the big 18-wheeler flat deck.
Yeah.
And it started pouring rain in Oakdale, and you could smell the chocolate.
Oh, that's cool.
It's pretty amazing, actually. You know, whether it was, I mean, they hadn't been used in a long time. It was there.
Yeah.
And it's kind of neat.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So you've been doing this with your brother, and your brother's he started off at X and Oak, or how did that go?
Yeah. So we started the distillery in 2016. The main inspiration behind starting a distillery was I was trying to do woodworking. I made an amazing bench for a family member, actually. And, you know, she's looking at it and she's like, this is amazing. I love it. And it's beautiful. I had gold inlay leaflet along all the saw marks of the 1 3/4 inch walnut slab.
And had that just been like a hobby? Was that just something you were always kind of into?
It was a hobby, but I was
just see if you could do something with it. Right,
Yeah.
sure.
So I was not charging anything. And then trying to figure out what I could charge and what I could really make money at. And she was like, Justin, this is amazing. This has to be worth $600. And I was like, and literally it was like a ding. That's the little moment I was like, I got to get out of this industry. Okay.
Right.
Like, I can't make custom made furniture. It's very economy dependent.
Right.
Whereas they'll go to IKEA, you know, just like in whiskey. I mean, they'll go down in price, but buyers will. But with that moment, I was like, okay, the walnut alone was $600.
Yeah.
I spent a week and a half of my time.
Plus the time, plus the
I mean,
effort and
you
your
know,
skill.
great-
And yeah.
I mean, you know, whatever, you know,
Because she was, maybe she was right.
Well-
and maybe it
You're
was worth $1,200, but maybe she was right, and it
Right.
was worth $600. And at that point, just
So I was like, I got to do something different. My brother in 2013 had just started Axe and Oak Distilling Company or Distillery, in Colorado Springs, Colorado. You said
It was
you've been
so
there.
funny because I'm reading on there
Yeah.
and I'm down. And so I probably was there, I don't know, 4 years ago? I'm trying to remember time wise. I was out there doing a workshop and I had an evening. I was literally there like during the day doing things and had one night to go kick around Colorado Springs. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, distillery. And so I
Yeah.
went there, had a bottle, brought it home. And so I'm reading that. I'm like, I know exactly where that is.
Yeah,
You know, it's just
yeah.
funny how this is a small little world at times.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
Are you distributed in Colorado?
No.
Okay, gotcha.
not
Okay,
yet.
Cool.
But yeah, he started it, and so I was just kind of like that was in 2013, and and whether both of y'all know the story, but in 2012 I was in a bad crash, and you remember that bad car crash, and so a lot changed. I was still dealing with procedures and surgeries and stuff in 2013. I say this to my friends, but I had $1 million medical bill in 2013.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, exactly. And but
That's a lot of custom tables.
Exactly. Or whiskey.
Yeah, or whiskey.
But I basically was kind of like, all right, I tried to sell the bench. It didn't work. So I gave my brother a call and said, hey, man, what do you think about helping me get one started down here? Mm-hmm. And he stayed with Axon Yoke and was really helping me consult the startup procedures and all that. And then, so we got it started. And,
cool.
And then he moved down actually in 2018, late 2017, but 2018 to be full-time with Tah as well. And, this is just, a very brief explanation, but, with COVID and lockdowns, it's changed the company quite a bit.
I bet.
Right now, sales are not that great, and we're crawling back out of the hole. We got our nose above water.
Good.
And we're here. And but it was kind of the right time for him to go back to Axon Yoke. And, it's a great company and great whiskey. And so he was needed back there. And we're like, yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's me and Shannon Hood. I don't know if y'all know Shannon Hood.
I do know Shannon, yeah.
WTF.
She's in our fantasy football league.
Yeah.
Oh, well, then I will be meeting Shannon.
Yeah, totally.
And hopefully winning whiskey off of her in our fantasy football
It'll
league.
probably be a bunch of TahWahKaro.
Right, it'd be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, she's awesome. She's Kentucky executive steward. She's certified level 1 sommelier, going for level 2 soon. And
Nice.
yeah, she's up at ADI right now, but yeah, she'll be handling like events and stuff like that. And then obviously, one of my partners, Jason Vivian, is with us as well. But yeah, we're crawling. We're crawling. We're getting out of the hole, basically.
I'm just always so respectful of what passion projects these things are, and just that they are family and small circle affairs. And it's something that I didn't realize at all. As somebody, I feel like I say this every show, but I was like I still feel like the newbie, coming in, and Nico's taught me so much. But as I've started to get to know more and more people, that the people they do this and they start this because they love it, and it really is the heart of that thing. And I think it's what I appreciate more about this than anything else. Because most people don't think of like, what business am I going to start? Yeah. Oh, let me start the one that probably isn't super profitable. And no, it's this thing like, I love doing this. You love creating things. You love the experience that you're giving your customers and stuff like that. And so in the community that you created, and there's just so much heart in it. I think that's awesome.
Well, yeah, I agree with you. Small business in general is all about passion and love for what you do. And you want to provide for your family. And we, there's every single day, this is kind of, it's real. I miss firing up my stills.
Yeah.
I love distilling.
Yeah.
And that's the cool thing. I like grinding my grain, milling my grain with my hammer mill and cooking. And the process is really interesting to me.
Yeah.
And I also like repetition.
Yeah.
I like repetitive thing, mornings and repetitive days. So, cause I like to try to make the same product. And then along the way,
consistency of it.
But that's what makes anything great. The people that fall in love with the process, whether it's this art, musicians, whatever. There was some. I remember, squats. But the reason Nico and I know each other is we come from a theater background, and I always remember. I remember had a mentor that I always talked about, until you just fall in love with the process, you fall in love with practice as much as you do the performance.
Exactly.
Like that's what makes that makes the better product at the end of it. And that sounds like that's right up your alley as well.
Yeah, I used to be a bicycle racer before being a distiller.
Yeah.
And worked in the bicycle industry, but I love training way more than I loved racing.
That makes sense. Yep.
So racing was like the icing on the cake, especially if you win. But I like training. It's fun. It's like you're working hard. You're trying to make something better of not just your physical performance, but just better, make you stronger.
That's awesome.
Have either of y'all seen Ted Lasso?
Yes. Okay. Well, the first season I haven't.
Right.
I'm not all cut up, but yes.
So one of my favorite Ted Lasso episodes is the one where he goes off about practice, and it's really funny. Like if you don't know Ted Lasso, go watch it. It'll save your life. Anyway, but like his whole point was that practice, like the repetition, that's the moment that we can control everything. Like this is us getting better. This is us doing it together as a team. Like everything that happens in this moment is all about us. And then we have to do these things called games that is total chaos and it's crazy. But this
is what we control,
the time
right?
that we can be better and get better and repeat.
Yeah.
And I love that idea.
That's
cool.
awesome.
Yeah, it's great. It's absolutely true.
Do we want to? I'm gonna say, should we try one more before we have to wrap up here?
This?
Tell me what's in the
Okay,
secret
tell me
bottle.
what
if we're
this
gonna
is.
try one more, let's do that one for sure.
Okay.
Tell me what this is.
This is our oldest rye malt barrel. So this is
secret whiskey.
yeah, we're switching back to on rye malt production once we get the stills fried. So it'll be over 2 years before you get to really dive into this rye malt. But this is one of the grains. A lot of our current rye malt, even in market, is Texas rye malt.
Okay.
And our original 3 barrels of rye malt were everything but the rye was Texas, but the rye malt was from Germany.
Right on.
And, we started with the BSG supply originally out of Houston, but this rye malt is what I want to get back to because this flavor is really not usual in rye malt world. Mm-hmm. We proofed it to 105. Our last competition, we haven't entered competitions for a while, but we've always medaled at every competition we've been in. And
Are you pulling out more things?
I have batch 2.
Okay,
of
yes,
rye malt.
that's Texas.
Yeah.
So
this,
very different.
This is very, very different.
Yeah,
And how
well,
old-
I
how
won't
old
say
is this?
very different. It's definitely has continual flavors, but
And what's the age on?
3.5.
It's 3.5.
Yeah. Whereas that's more
how old
like
is this one?
just under 2 years old on that.
Yeah.
2 years. Right
Yeah.
on. Cool.
But the German rye malt,
That'll make a difference.
yes,
Good.
yeah.
Right, yeah.
The German rye malt is a flavor that when we started this project, there were only about 8 distilleries that I could find, or 8 rye malts in the world.
This is the first rye malt I've ever had. I'll tell you that much.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's become a lot more popular.
Yep.
And this is one of my favorites as well. It's just bright. It's very fruity on when we make it coming off the still. And
Oh man, there's so much like raspberry. Yeah, kind of a blackberry.
I get a dark
raspberry.
fruit.
Yeah.
I get a little
much
bit
so.
of roasted toffee. I get a little black tea.
Yeah.
But
definitely.
on make, when I'm making it,
And again, this one says 131 proof on
Yes.
here, but it's such a lighter experience than the other one. If I can just simplify that, is
Yeah.
the way I do. Is the other one where it's a warm hug in your mouth, and the other. This one's a very light experience, and like what you said
Yeah.
with it being fruitier and that. But again, when I look at something that says 131 proof, I'm not expecting this experience, and I'm like, oh, it's lovely,
beautiful, yeah,
Right.
yeah. And
I mean,
yeah,
it's your process.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
because it tastes like that because of the way that you approach the tails.
Right.
Like, literally.
Yeah.
That is the difference.
And the single
between-
distillation.
And the single distillation.
Yeah.
100%.
And so those two things are what's keeping it from having that bite that you would associate with a high proof whiskey. Is that
And
if
with
I'm
rye.
following across
and with rye,
with rye.
this says 68%.
Yeah, it's rye.
malted rye.
Yeah.
and has 17%. By the way, Texas rye in it as well. Has a little bit of corn, a little bit of wheat, 6.6 on percent, and then 3% or 2.5 to 3%. It kind of depends on how you calculate it, but 2.8% of that extra toast 2 row as well. So it's a very complex. It's actually a 4-grain rye malt, but
Wow.
we don't really talk about that.
Right.
But it's got a lot of rye, but it's not this super spicy. Now we have a rye whiskey, and it's spicy, and it's big proof. We also have really interesting.
Is that out?
No.
Okay.
No. So when you come out when y'all come out to the distillery, I'll take you through
And
a couple.
when y'all come
very-
out to
yeah.
the distillery.
Oh, that's good.
Very. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. the more important,
Yes.
the consumers
Those on the other side of the
are
screen.
awesome
Yes.
fans. But yeah, we have a couple very special barrels. One of them I found, or I kind of revisited it and went and do the quality control tasting, full throttle Friday. It's
Right.
kind of how it is.
What a rough job. The quality
know.
control tasting. That's the job we need,
Somebody has
Nico.
to do
You
it.
got to get the quality control
I
tasting.
literally
Yeah.
think we're doing it.
Oh,
right
but that's
now,
what this
so,
show
yeah.
is, right?
Yeah.
You actually need to be there the day we do it. But I popped open for the first time in a long time. I think it's actually the first time since I made it within. I tasted it a month after I made it, but I have a single malt, and I have 2 barrels of a single malt. And basically, sometimes I'm in there, and all the products we make are really what we keep grains in stock as.
Yeah.
So if I want a rye malt, I have the rye malt product sitting here.
Right.
And I was like, hey, let's up the poundage here. Let's do this. Let's move that. But you can taste 3 very different flavors in what you guys have just sampled. Well, the other one is the bourbon and rye malt. But between the red and blue corn, our standard bourbon, and our rye malt, those are 3 completely different, profiles on flavor. And how you do that with the grains that are really similar, or I mean, not similar, but they're all in-house, and what we use in our process is pretty cool. But the single malt is interesting. I took it home at a year. It's 1 year old. A month ago, or 3 weeks ago, I took a bottle. I was like, wait a second. It was this dark at a year old, and I couldn't really understand what happened. I was kind of like, did I mislabel this barrel?
Really a year old?
But it's a year old, and it is unbelievable. And I'm blown away. And now we did use a new make barrel on it. But it's phenomenal. It's 50% 6-row, which we use in our bourbon and in our rye malt, and 50% of that extra toast, Texas,
Nice.
2-row malt. So
that's cool.
Again, it's a true single. Well, it's a single malt, but it's unique. So we have a few barrels like that floating around in a distillery that are fun.
Man,
and,
that's my favorite thing about going to a distillery is if you actually get a chance to like be there with the distiller, and they're like, oh yeah, I was messing around in this thing, just like,
let me show you the happy accident that happened over here, right? And so
absolutely.
But that's so fun because it is kind of your playground, and you've obviously you've talked about that a lot, and that's great when you really do love the process that much. And
I will genuinely say that all of these, TahWahKaro in general, and I'm not just saying this because you're here, I would say this if you weren't, is what
he hasn't said it yet. Wait.
Yeah.
Brace yourself.
Is truly one of the most underrated Texas whiskey distilleries out there.
Absolutely.
This is like the way, just the process alone is very special. It's very different. And the way that, like, I'm so glad that you guys have moved. I'm so glad that you are settling in. I'm so glad that you made it out of the pandemic for, theoretically.
Right. Nose above water. We're getting there, right?
Still by theory.
I'm so glad to see what happens to this whiskey as it's got a little bit more time, and you get to be a little bit more just you get to spend more time with it, because I feel like you are very, very good at your process, and I'm very happy that you're able to do more of it now.
Yeah,
it's really fantastic.
Yeah,
it's absolutely
thank you.
fantastic.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
That's
Go.
great. Yes.
You go to TahWahKaro.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Justin, thank you so much for being on the show. You guys,
no problem.
go pick up a bottle. Experience this for yourself. I mean, I'm sure it looks really fun on that side of the camera. It's way more fun when you actually pour a glass. So go check that out. Follow you guys. Social media, you can find them on.
Yeah, the next 2 months. On Instagram, Facebook,
cool.
and then our website. But next 2 months, hopefully, we will have the doors open. I just need to get the ability to have people in there, and then once we do, we'll give obviously tours on the weekend and show you the process.
Maybe that's one of those things we grab some of the listeners and we go make a day trip out of it and come on down and stuff. That'd be really fun.
That would be so much fun.
Great. Yeah. Awesome.
How's the hotel scene in Palestine?
You can work it out.
They exist?
Yeah,
okay, good. That's all we need to know. That's
the Redlands Hotel is a cool spot. Yeah.
All right.
There we go. See?
Yeah.
See that it's
And
a very there's your new sponsor. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for popping in again. That guy's name is Nico Martini. Follow him at Texas Whiskey Book on Instagram and send us some questions, man. Let us know what else you would like to see. We really appreciate you popping in. My name is Jimmy Hayes Nelson. You can follow me on Instagram at TheCoachJimmy. And until next time, cheers, y'all.
Cheers.
Take care.
We do. God is good.
It
so
is.
good.
Let's make sure.